Welcome to part 19 of this series, trying to locate the sons of Noah and where they really went to. But in this video we're going to be looking at Greek mythology, and can the Bible help us to try understand Greek mythology? But we're not going to be going into great detail, we just want to try to get a little understanding. So we're going to be looking at these two main groups. The first generation known as the Titans, and then the second generation known as the Olympians. And Uranus and Gaia gave birth to Kronos, and Kronos was the leader of the Titans, and Kronos and Rhea gave birth to Zeus, and Zeus was the leader of the Olympians. But now we want to look at the Bible to see if we can try and make sense of this, and we're going to be looking at the story of Ham. Now when we did the series trying to locate the sons of Ham, we never spoke about this famous story, what became known as the curse of Ham, but it was actually the curse of Canaan. And I don't want to go into that emotive topic about why did the curse of Canaan become known as the curse of Ham. Just try not get distracted and go off course in the video. So let's look at the story. It says, "These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not the father's nakedness." So it's saying that Shem and Japheth, they did the right thing, or the righteous thing. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Now we don't really get told what actually happened. What did his younger son do unto him? And he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." So this is a bit of the confusing part, because Ham's doing something wrong, but then Canaan gets cursed. Now there's obviously different opinions and interpretations for this, but one idea is that because right here at the top, at the beginning of Genesis 9, it says God blessed Noah and his sons. What scholars are thinking is that God's already blessed Ham, so Noah can't actually curse Ham directly because Ham's already received a blessing. So maybe that's why Canaan gets cursed instead of Ham. But there are other theories as well. But what I want to try and get the idea from this, what we could be looking at here is like Ham maybe trying to overthrow Noah, okay, because Noah is the the head of the family, the leader of the family. So this could maybe be describing some kind of an event when Ham is trying to take the place of Noah, or try undermine Noah's leadership of the family. And that's what I'm trying to get from this story, because if we look at the Greek mythology, what we have here is the war of the Titans, and one generation trying to overthrow another generation. So let's look at this first character called Uranus. Okay, so what we learn is Uranus, he fathered the first generation of the Titans, and he's a primordial god, and is personified with the sky and the heavens. And another interesting thing it says here is that he's connected to the rain, and being Lord of the Rain, or the Rainmaker. Okay, so that's Uranus, and now he gives birth to Kronos. Let's look at Kronos. This is where it gets a bit interesting, because it says Kronos was the leader and the youngest of the first generation of the Titans. But then it says Kronos was usually depicted with a harp, a scythe, or a sickle, which was the instrument he used to castrate and depose Uranus, his father. So this is the interesting part, because Kronos, it actually says, castrated and deposed Uranus. So what I'm trying to think about is that we have this story in the Bible where Ham seems to be doing something with Noah, and could it be an attempt to try to depose his father? Now in the Bible we don't really know what happened. It doesn't explain what Ham did unto Noah, but there are different theories. But the interesting thing here is that Kronos overthrows his father with this act of castration. So if we can maybe try to think about this family tree of the Greek mythology, and maybe seeing Kronos as Ham and Uranus as Noah. So Kronos is one of the Titans, overthrowing his father Noah. So that's what we're going to be trying to explore in this video. And then maybe it makes sense that Uranus being personified as the sky and the heavens, and maybe being connected to the rain. If we think about all the rain in the Great Flood, maybe that's what some of this means. Now, Kronos, he overthrows his father, but then he receives a prophecy he learns from his father and his mother, Gaia and Uranus, that he's also destined to be overthrown by his son. Okay, and then we've got the story of Zeus. Now I'm not going to read the whole story. If you don't know the story, you can read it. But Zeus actually is saved by his mother, and he actually does overthrow his father. And that's the War of the Titans, this famous War of the Titans, and the Olympians with Zeus overthrows Kronos. So the prophecy becomes fulfilled. So now, if we're thinking Noah and Ham, what we're thinking is that Ham gives birth to Zeus. So let's look at the genealogy of Ham to see if we can make sense of that. Now the most obvious that sticks out to me is that Cush, the similarity with Cush and Zeus. So could Cush actually be the god Zeus in Greek mythology? So then it would be Ham giving birth to Cush, and then Cush is the leader of the Olympians. Now, can we try and use the Bible to make sense of this? Because we can see that Zeus gives birth to a very famous character called Hercules, and Hercules is one of the most famous characters in the Greek mythology, and we see Hercules is connected with great strength. So if we go to the Bible, and we can see that it says that Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Okay, so Hercules was considered connected with great strength, and here the Bible is telling us Nimrod was a mighty one, and he was a mighty hunter. So would that then make sense that Cush had a very famous son called Nimrod, and Zeus had a very famous son called Hercules? So that would then kind of complete this line, but it's actually following the line of Ham. So it'd be Noah gives birth to Ham, Ham gives birth to Cush, and Cush gives birth to Nimrod. So Nimrod as Hercules. Isn't that fascinating? Potentially very important for our study as well. But can we find something else to try to support this idea of Zeus being Cush using the Bible? And I was reading this part here. This is chapter 15 from Josephus, and he's speaking about Abraham. Remember in the previous video we were looking about the sons of Abraham through his wife Keturah, and it said the 6 sons were, it says here, Zambran, Jazar, Madan, and Madian. Those are the 2 we were looking at. Jozabak and Sus. See that? So Josephus is saying that Abraham had a son called Sus. Now you might be surprised, I was quite surprised to know what son this is, because if we go to Genesis, not that one, it's this one. Okay, so here it says the 6 sons are Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. So there's no Sus there. But we can learn who this Sus is, because if we go back, it tells us that now the sons of Sus were Sabatan and Dedan. So that's how we know that it's actually speaking about Jokshan, because it goes on to say, look, Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan. So in the Bible it's Jokshan, but Josephus is calling him Sus. Isn't that amazing? But if we look at this word Jokshan, this is where we can connect it together, because the meaning is one who sets a snare or a fowler, but it's from the verb yakosh or kush, and the related names are Kish. Can you see how that actually shows and kind of brings it together? Because this Jokshan, the verb, is connected with Kish, Kush, or Yakosh, but Josephus calls him Sus. So can you see how that connects Sus with Kush? And that kind of also, we've been speaking about these variations of Kush, because remember I was speaking about the Kosei. So you've got the Kos, but they were also connected to the Kissi, or the Kissians. or the Cushi. So we're starting to see how this kind of, how these different variations of the word Cush, and now we're seeing it with Kish and Cush and Yakosh. But that's really fascinating because now we've got a strong link for Zeus being connected to Cush. And then I've been thinking about the work that we've been doing, and we've been speaking about this area and this Susa. So now I'm looking at this Susa and wondering if that's not connected to Zeus, that this is the land of Zeus, Sus. And remember how we did that video on speaking about Elam and Ethiopia, and that sometimes Susa was called Kisia, and even Elam was sometimes called Kisia. Can you see how that kind of makes sense, that this land could be known as Sus, but also the land of Cush or Kish? So that's very interesting. Now I want to try to think about some of the things that we've been speaking about, because this kind of affects our study. Because remember how we spoke about this source saying that the Africans said that Hercules was in Spain and perished in Spain. Now we're not thinking potentially Hercules, we're thinking Nimrod. And it said that, you know, his troops consisted of the Medes and the Persians and the Armenians. So not Hercules ruling over the Persians and the Medes and the Armenians, but Nimrod. And remember how we spoke about in this part 2. Remember we said that story about Elam, when I was telling you about King Shedlamur, king of Elam, and Amraphel, king of Shinar. And then we actually saw that Amraphel was actually Nimrod, and Nimrod was still alive. But he was ruling over subjects. He still had subjects. He was still powerful. So was he ruling over people like the Medes and the Persians and the Armenians? And we also had this detail when we spoke about Lud, son of Shem, that there was this Heraclid dynasty that ruled Lydia. Now the Heraclid dynasty, that means descendants of Hercules. So it could be looking at a Nimrod dynasty, descendants from Nimrod. You see how it starts to impact the, you know, the history and what we've been researching. Now I also want to try to think about how we can try and make sense of this, because if we think about the Bible and one of the, you know, the story of the Tower of Babel, I just want to find my verse. I think it's here. Yeah, sorry, I found it. Okay, so speaking about the Tower of Babel, but before the Tower of Babel, it says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And then, because of the Tower of Babel, the languages were confused and changed. So then all the tribes that then were dispersed had different languages. So that would mean that Noah would then become a man of many different names, because the different tribes would have different names for Noah. And Ham would also have different names, and Cush would have different names, and Nimrod would have different names, because the languages were changed. So if we see here, so we remember we're equating Uranus with Noah. We can see it says that in Mesopotamia he was known as Anu. Okay, and he was also known as you know, like a sky god, personified with the sky. And then if we look at Kronos, who we're linking with Ham, it says that he was known to the Romans as Saturn. You see, he's got a different name. But to in Egypt he was known as Geb, and Mesopotamia he was known as Enlil. Can you see how it's the same person, but they've got different names because of this confusion of languages? And Zeus is, the Romans called Zeus Jupiter. Now the interesting one is this connection with Indra. If we look at Indra, now we're speaking about the Hindu and the Vedic. Indra is connected with Thor. Okay, now Thor is a very famous, because of all the movies recently, and we can see here, look, Thor wielding his hammer. But if we look at the picture I showed you at the start of the video, we see Hercules wielding his club. So I think this club of Hercules is connected to the hammer of Thor, and Thor is connected to Hercules, but now we're seeing Hercules is connected to Nimrod. Can you see how this is very, very interesting? So I'm thinking that Thor is actually one of these names, another different name for Nimrod. And I just want to read you this part because this is probably really important. It says here, the only hero to whom cults were established internationally all over the Greek world was the strongman Hercules. So it was actually the worship of Hercules that spread internationally. So can you see how we're starting to see that with Hercules, and then we also have Thor. So in Europe and Scandinavia, you see how he's worshipped all internationally, but with a different name because of the confusion of the languages. And then even as Indra. And the interesting part here is it says that the day of the week, Thursday, is named after Thor. So like today, if I say I'm uploading a video today on Thursday, I'm actually saying it's Thor's day. So we're still kind of involved in this pagan worship without knowing it. You know, we're still with us. And then it says here as well that because Kronos is known as Saturn, that his day is Saturday. You see there. So Saturday is Satan's day. So it's very, very interesting. And I think I just want to say one more thing, because there was something in the previous video I forgot to mention, because Hercules is also connected to the Amazons, the stories with Hercules and the Amazons. But remember, we're thinking Nimrod now with the Amazons. But I forgot to come back to something, because it said that these Amazons, these warrior queens, may have been, the homeland may have been Libya. And I actually forgot to come back to that, because I saw on this map, the 1710 map of Africa, we've got this region here called Amazon. See that? And it was equating these Amazons as being near Libya. And this is very close to Libya. And it says Amazon. So could this actually be the origin of where these Amazons, these warrior queens, were living? So I just wanted to show you that, because that was very interesting. Because we were speaking about these warrior queens, and these, in the previous video, these Berber queens, Queen Kahina, who was a religious and military leader, and she was queen of the Ores. And there's something else I was thinking that was quite interesting, because I was wondering if this Ores could maybe be connected to the word Arya, or Aryans. I was wondering if that word is connected, I'm not sure, but she was queen of the Ores, and we were wondering if the Berbers could be an Arya, or an Aryan nation. So is that word connected to Aryan? And I also saw something interesting here, look, Amor, the Amor mountain range. So could that be connected to Amor, son of Canaan, and the Amorites? That was interesting. So just a few more things to show how this could be accurate and it could be interesting, because we see, so remember Kronos, we're thinking Ham, Uranus is Noah, just in case this is new to you and it's quite surprising, because you might not never have heard this before. So we're thinking Uranus, Noah, Cronus, Ham, Zeus, Cush. But you see, if this is Ham, we know that another son of Ham is Canaan. Okay, Ham gives birth to Canaan. And there's a remember I spoke in this video, I think it was part 11 or part 10, about is Sidon the African land called Sudan. And I think I may have mentioned that there's a similarity of this word Sidon to Poseidon. So that was interesting, because I've been reading some scholars that say that Heth, son of Canaan, doesn't carry his father's name, but Sidon, he carries his father's name, Canaan. But that's a bit strange, because Sidon doesn't sound like Canaan. But then when you think about this, if Canaan is Poseidon, then Sidon does carry his father's name. And I think that actually does kind of make sense, because if we think of Poseidon as Canaan, so Canaan, son of Ham, see how Poseidon's connected with the ocean, as like the god of the ocean, and Canaan's descendants were connected to the Phoenicians and the maritime empire. So that kind of makes sense that he's connected with the ocean, and his sons are connected with the Phoenicians and the maritime explorers. So I thought that was also a nice, interesting connection. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's very fascinating and maybe a bit surprising if you've never heard it before, but I think it could help with our research if we start to think about Hercules as Nimrod, and Zeus as Cush, and Kronos as Ham. And you're gonna see as we go on in the study, as we start looking at the other sons of Japheth, that this could be important, this detail. And I think in the next video we're going to cover the next sons of Japheth. We're going to be looking at Tubal and Meshach. So thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next video.